Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, there exist two kinds of humanities, the mechanical humanity and the conscious humanity. To pass from the mechanical center of gravity to a conscious center of gravity, the use of a third force is necessary, the Gnostic work on ourselves, here and now. The 7 types of men. The first 3 types of men form the base of the mechanical humanity. Man number 1, the merely instinctive and mechanic man. The instinctive, mechanic, or motor centers prevail in him. Man number 2, the emotional person who lives in the world of inferior emotions, passions, and animal desires. Man number 3, the merely intellectual man who is reasoning all day long, basing all his activities on the intellectual center. The circle of language confusion, the Tower of Babel. Men number 1, 2, and 3 form the circle of language confusion, the Tower of Babel, because they do not understand each other, even if they speak the same country's language. The instinctive man does not understand the emotional man. The emotional man does not understand the intellectual man nor the instinctive man. Each person interprets what the other says in their own way, according to their prevailing center, instinct, emotion, or intellect, giving words a completely different meaning. Men 1, 2, and 3 are the ones that have provoked the great wars in the world, including the First and Second World Wars. The higher types of men, who are part of the kingdom, where the confusion of languages does not exist, are man number 5, possesses an astral body and utilizes it at will. Man number 6, possesses a mental body and is aware of it. Man number 7 possesses a causal body and knows that. Becoming man number 4 and beyond. It is necessary to become a man number 4 before being part of the kingdom. The man number 4 has balanced his mechanic machine and already possesses the psychological moon, a conscious center of gravity. This type of man is ready to take part in the activities of the kingdom. The creation of the conscious center of gravity. The creation of a moon within ourselves, a conscious center of gravity, requires the use of a third force, which is the esoteric work. To begin this work and move from the mechanical to the conscious center of gravity, one must leave aside self-considerations and self-sentimentalism, self-pity, sighs, anguish, sadness, etc. The more one loves and pities oneself, the more one hates others. The most revengeful demons are those who are full of self-sentimentalism. Conversely, if one hates oneself, in the sense of self-recognition, then one will love others. Recognize and accept one's own imperfections, jealousy, rancor, resentments. Accept that one is a mechanical creature whose life moves over the tracks of habits. Accept that one is a mere worm on the mud of earth. When one accepts this and hates oneself, that is, recognizes and rejects the mechanical self, one has begun to form the conscious center of gravity within oneself. The institution will teach how to work on oneself to achieve this. The day one forms this center, one is no longer a mechanical person, but a conscious creature with a conscious psychological moon. Further creation and the infinite. Creation of the psychological sun. After creating the psychological moon, the next step is to create the psychological sun within oneself, thereby becoming solar men. This requires assimilating the solar intelligence, the Christ Sun. Creation of the internal psychological galaxy. Much later, this step leads toward the level of gods. Creation of the infinite. Finally, the creation of the infinite of Einstein within ourselves, which contains about 100,000 million galaxies, each with about 100,000 suns, leads to the highest level of gods. This concept points to the existence of many infinites, demonstrable through trans-infinite mathematics, where infinite plus infinite equals infinite, whose foundation is the absolute. The man who has fabricated his psychological moon, his conscious center of gravity, becomes independent from the lunar mechanical influence. We can free ourselves from the mechanical lunar force which produces tides and serves as weight for nature's mechanics by creating a psychological moon within ourselves, a conscious center of gravity, following the principle similia similibus curantur. However, this is not all. He who possesses a conscious center of gravity because he has fabricated the conscious psychological moon, which has allowed him to emancipate himself from the lunar mechanical influence, obviously must create a psychological sun within himself. The creation of the psychological sun. When does he create the psychological sun? When he fabricates the superior existential bodies of the being by means of the fulfillment of the parlock duty of the being, that is to say, the cosmic duty of the being, which has three factors. To die, or the destruction of the undesirable elements that we carry inside. To be born, or the second birth. Jesus, the great Kabir, said to Nicodemus, "Except a man be born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God." To enter the kingdom requires the creation of the existential superior bodies of the being, which means being born from the water and fire. Sacrifice for humanity. If we are egotists, if we do not work for the good of our fellow men, if we do not raise the torch to illuminate the path for others, we will not progress. The egotist, even if he were to be very pietistic, will be unable to progress in these studies. Brothers, the creation of the psychological sun within yourselves has these three factors that you already know: to die, to be born, and sacrifice for humanity. When one assimilates the solar intelligence and solar ideas, one becomes a solar man. The sun's experiment. The sun wanted and wants to create solar men. It has deposited the germs for the solar man in our sexual glands. These germs can get lost, which is normal. The sun is making a very difficult experiment to create solar men. During the times of Abraham the prophet, many creations were attained. During the first 8 centuries of Christianity, some men were created. In the Middle Ages, a few creations were attained. In these moments, the Star King is fighting, making a last effort before the destruction of this race. When a humanity loses interest in the solar ideas, the sun also loses interest in that humanity, and thus destroys it. Afterward, it creates a new race for its experiment in the laboratory of nature. Obviously, the creation of solar men would not be possible if we do not cooperate with the sun. We have the germs for the man in our internal glands, but the availability to the man is necessary. If we cooperate and work according to the Gnostic ideas, then the solar man will surge in us. This work is like the butterfly that grows within the chrysalis. When it is ready, the insect surges and flies. We are like the chrysalis. We have to form the solar man within ourselves. But to do so, cooperation is fundamental. When one cooperates, the sun, the psychological man, the solar man is born within oneself. The sun wants a harvest of solar men. Obviously, it is its right. Because it created this thin skin of organic life on the crust of our world, when a farmer sows, he has the right to a harvest. The sun has established on the crust of our world a very thin skin of organic life. We do not deny that this thin skin is a factory of pain. However, the sun has the right to obtain a harvest of solar men. That is what it wants. It has the right to demand payment because it has worked. He who has worked needs to be paid. Sacrifice and self-consideration. If we want the creation of the psychological moon, the conscious center of gravity within ourselves, and afterwards the psychological sun, we need sacrifice, because without it, the creation of the psychological moon becomes impossible. Therefore, we will speak a little bit about the sacrifice. For example, if we stop loving ourselves, there exists sacrifice. We have the strong tendency to love ourselves so much. Obviously, within ourselves, there exists the I of self-esteem. To stop loving oneself, one has to learn to receive with pleasure the unpleasant manifestations of our fellow men. If one can do so, then one is capable of giving birth to a conscious center of gravity. In doing so, there exists sacrifice. Are you capable of receiving with pleasure the words of an insulter? Are you sure that you would smile before the one that has snapped your face? Let us be sincere with ourselves. We have to change, and this can only be possible by means of sacrifices. To receive with pleasure the unpleasant manifestations of our fellow men means sacrifice. It means to leave aside self-consideration and self-sentimentality. Certainly, one always protests against hurting words, and that is a mistake. The person that is hurting us is bringing an extraordinary opportunity. He is giving a psychological gymnasium where it is possible to learn to receive with pleasure the unpleasant manifestations of our fellow men. What could we do if there were no insulters? Where could we train? What could be the psychological gymnasium? Yes, we need to be insulted, hurt, and even snapped. What really counts is to learn to receive with pleasure all the offenses. If one discovers the I of anger, it will be necessary to work on that I, to comprehend it wholly, and afterwards to beg the Divine Mother Kundalini to eliminate that I from ourselves. If one has the I of self-esteem, it will be necessary to beg the Divine Mother Kundalini to eliminate that I from ourselves. In this way, we will not love ourselves anymore. Therefore, the insulters are useful. What could we say about jealousy? If one attains its disintegration, not just the passional jealousy, but the religious and political jealousy, then one has taken a great step forward. One has to become an enemy of oneself, of his self-considerations, of his self-praise, of his secret fears. One has to emancipate oneself from his jealousy, his pride, and his vanity, if in truth one wants the creation of the conscious center of gravity within oneself. The men number 4 are those that have really attained all of this. The path of ascension. The man number 4 is ready for the creation of an astral body and to enter in the path of the man number 5. The man number 5 lives in the astral world absolutely conscious. He who possesses an astral body can travel with it through space, visit other planets, and stay in touch with the conscious circle of the solar humanity that operates over the superior centers of the being. The man number 5 is ready to become a man number 6, and he does so when he creates a mental body. Afterwards, he is able to capture the entire wisdom of nature. The man number 6 becomes man number 7 when he creates the causal body. Afterwards, he can receive his psychic and spiritual principles and transform himself into a solar man, a true man. For this reason, I was saying to you that after the psychological moon has been created, it will be necessary to fabricate the psychological sun. However, all of this is attained through sacrifices. Descent and the infinite. How could a man that has fabricated the psychological moon, the psychological sun, a solar man, be capable of becoming a galactic man if he does not descend? He must descend to the ninth sphere, to the forge of the Cyclops, the infernal worlds, so afterwards he can resurrect and ascend to the stars and become what is called a galactic man. He must create a galaxy within himself, and that is something possible to attain through sacrifice and descending to the infernal worlds. A galactic man has the perfect right to travel from galaxy to galaxy. In other words, he can become part of an intergalactic crowd. What could we say about the man that reaches the infinite state, about the man that has created the infinite within himself? To be capable of doing so, he has to descend and suffer. He has to enter into the entrails of any world to know the laws of the infinite, and then to ascend again. In this form, he creates an infinite within himself. Such a man can travel from galaxy to galaxy. He deserves it. However, there exist even greater possibilities. It is possible to enter in the future infinite, or in other infinites, and to ascend grade by grade. However, every ascension is preceded by a descent. Only through sacrifice can one be transformed into something different. However, do not confuse a descent with a fall. Obviously, those that have not reached the high initiation confuse a fall with a descent easily. This is obvious. They are the members of the movement that say, "Such a master has fallen. That brother has fallen." They talk and they do not know. They do not understand the laws of alchemy. They have not studied the apocalypse from an esoteric point of view ever. They do not know anything about the alchemist Genesis. They are the ones that calumniate the masters. Therefore, we have to be severe in the analysis and profound in the reflection. We have to comprehend the work that has to be done. We need to elevate ourselves little by little, from grade to grade, and to pass from the mechanical center of gravity to the conscious center of gravity, something attainable only through the third force, the Gnostic esoteric work. Here we will give you the systems, the science, so you can become men number 4. We need you to understand that they already possess a strong conscious gravity center. Inferential peace. Samael Aun Weor.